I also got a cracked rear view, Hootie and the Blowfish on that trip.
I remember that.
It was awesome.
I might have got Tupac, Me Against the World or something.
Ooh, West Side.
Yeah. All right, you know how I roll.
I know.
Let's go to the phones. 529-1450 is the phone number. Good morning. You're on Fantasy Football 101, I think.
Did you guys start like a new fantasy football league, or is this continued over from the whole season?
Yeah, no, we're in a whole new league, but we did talk about ones last week that
can carry
over. Are you in either one like that?
No, I usually run my playoffs like week 14, maybe 15, just so there's nobody on the injury, or
sure.
I don't know, like Priest Holmes when he broke that record, he got like a touchdown or two, and then he came out of the game and it ended up costing the guys a playoff game.
Oh yeah,
we did it in week 17 or whatever, which it was our first year that we ever played, so we learned from our mistakes. But we usually try to end it at week 16. That way the teams still play their guys.
Right. Yeah, that's typical and standard, and that's fine. And what we're doing this year, and we've talked about a carryover league where you run through the entire regular season and then kind of carry your remaining players, forward and have another like playoff draft and kind of expanding your regular season to there. But we're not doing that this year. That's still just something that we've been talking about. This year we're all in the ESPN playoff gridiron challenge, and then a few of these guys are in some other kind of fantasy leagues, but it's separate from the regular season. All the leagues that we're in now, it's a totally different thing than the regular season.
I heard something about I don't know how it worked, but it was like in an old game fantasy football league, like I don't know, you could draft Emmitt Smith, and then they go back and look at what week he would have played that guy, and it's like, I guess it's like an estimated of what he would have done.
I have read something about that. It's like an all-time fantasy league, and you literally draft all-time players, and then they kind of come back in and somehow kind of randomly put in their stats from a given game or something like that. And that's kind of cool too. I haven't checked into it, but I mean, that sounds interesting.
That sounds cool. Yeah, I think what they do is they pick I think they pick that player's a random schedule. Like Emmitt Smith, they picked the 1994 schedule.
Right.
And then if it was like, Troy Aikman, they picked the 91 schedule. You know what I mean? And I think they just do it like that.
There's a site online. I can't think of what it is. I'll have to look it up. That's real popular the last couple of years during the so-called off season after the Super Bowl. Or if you're a real fantasy football fanatic, there's a bunch of guys who get into a league and they do this old all-time type fantasy league. So I'll look into it and see if I can find the site.
Yeah,
but yeah, this sounds interesting.
Give me some Niners.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Joe Montana and Jerry Rice.
Oh, yeah, man. Even Steve Young, even their defense. I mean, their defense. But everyone talks about the Niners' offense with Montana, Young, Rice, but
Roger
their
Craig.
defense was awesome. All those years, their defense was one of the best.
Ronnie Lott, Ken Norton. Oh, I love.
Caller, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up because that is seemingly becoming a little bit more popular. So that's something to look into.
Definitely. All right, guys. Have a good morning.
Thanks for the call. 529-1450, 529-1450. That's what's so interesting. There's so many different types of fantasy leagues out there, and that's why it's fun though, because it is, it's a fantasy league, and like I said earlier in the year, 30 million people play fantasy football. So
there's such a demand for it that we've got to find ways to make it last longer, and give it more weeks. When you have this many people wanting to play, just the regular season is not enough. So that's why we're seeing all these, playoff fantasy, ideas kind of pop up, and even like this guy said, where talk about fantasy. I mean, you're drafting guys that are dead. You know what I mean?
You could.
Yeah. So I mean, they're coming up with all different kinds of ways to play, and why not? It's all fun. It's fantasy football.
With the first pick of the Old Dude Football League, Eric Pedigo chooses Jim Brown.
I would. Oh, are you kidding me?
Well, yeah, why not?
Jim Brown.
I'm sure he had a few big days.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 529-1450 is our phone number. All right, let's run through our position rankings for round 2 of the playoffs. I've got quarterbacks and kickers. I'm going to start with the quarterbacks, and then we'll go around and wrap up with the kickers. But I ranked Tom Brady number 1. I don't think he's going to have as big a week as he did that one week when they killed the Jets, but I think he's still got to be ranked number 1 just because he's Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers, I think it will have another big game this week. He was had a decent game last week. I think just as big, if not bigger, this week, as Eric alluded to. I think he's going to work Jennings in a lot more in the passing game this week. I have Matt Ryan in at number 3, mostly because they're playing indoors, and I think he is going to air it out just a little bit. If they're going to beat Green Bay, they're going to have to throw the football. And then I have Big Ben at 4. I have Flacco at 5. The only reason I put Big Ben in front of Flacco is because the intangibles and because of the playoffs. Big Ben seems to always come through. Flacco's still kind of new at this thing. Last week he had a fumble. You know, you got to watch the interceptions against the Steelers. Polamalu's always flying around, so that's why I dropped Flacco down to 5. Cutler at 6, Hasselbeck at 7, and Sanchez at 8. I've been dogging him all year, so why stop? I got him ranked last.
And that's where he deserves to be. I mean, he's a decent quarterback, but all the guys, left standing still, you got to think Sanchez is the least.
Well, like Nick said, Hasselbeck from 10 years ago is back, so I got him in there above Sanchez.
Mighty NFC West.
But just barely. E-Rock, what do you got? Wide receivers or running backs?
I got wide receivers this week. Had I got running backs, I would have put the Galloping Ghost Red Grange at the top of my list.
I don't think they kept stats back then.
I saw him play in person.
I remember when he got drafted. Okay, my number one.
They booed him in New York.
Mark's old. My number 1 receiver.
67 years old, Mark Graham, ladies and gentlemen.
I got Jennings at the top of my list, which could be risky if he has any kind of game close to what he had last week. But I got him at the top of the list. I think he'll be better. I have Mike Wallace number 2, as I said earlier, and number 3 I have Roddy White, and it's kind of the Jamal Charles thing from last week where I'm like, well, name recognition alone, not a great matchup, but still, this guy's so good, he's got to be up there. So number 4, Anquan Bolden. 5, Johnny Knox, who I really, really like this week. 6, Wes Welker, who I also like quite a bit this week. And that's what's great about the Gridiron Challenge is, there's so many guys available for less, so you don't always just have to go over the top guys. Number 7, Santonio Holmes. 8, Mike Williams, Seattle, obviously. 9, Deion Branch, who's questionable, but still Brady's going to be throwing that ball around, and I like Branch. I like Branch to maybe get into the end zone. And number 10, I couldn't decide, so I guess I have a 10A and 10B. I like Derek Mason, and I like Hines Ward, both about the same for that 10 spot. I think either one of these guys could have a decent day. I like the wide receiver matchups this week, to be honest with you.
Both veterans, playoff time. Big Ben's in trouble. He's probably actually more likely to go to Hines Ward in a tough spot than Mike Wallace, just because he's done it before.
Oh, yeah. Mike Wallace had, 60 catches on the season. It just so happened that he averaged 22 yards a catch and had 10 touchdowns. But
Hines Ward probably has 60 catches in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And Hines Ward's the safety net. So
I look for Wallace and Johnny Knox to have similar stats: 4 catches, 100-plus yards, and a score. I don't think he's going to get a lot of catches,
plays,
but I think they will be involved in big plays. Yeah.
All right, Mark, running backs?
Matt Forte, we've talked about it before. I think he's just going to get a lot of touches, running and catching. I think he's going to have a very, very big day against Seattle. Rashard Mendenhall I have second. He's had some success against Baltimore. I think he's in for during the season he rushed for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Who are you talking about, Mark? I'm sorry. Who's your number 2?
Play again.
Rashard Mendenhall. Ben Jarvis Green Ellis I like at the 3rd spot. He's played real well lately, and Belichick knows how to run the ball and split the time between pass and run. Michael Turner I've got 4th. Packers aren't great. They're very good against stopping the run, but they're going to have to run. They can't expect Ryan to do it via the air. Ray Rice and his sickness I've got 5th, but it worries me. Tomlinson I've got 6th. Starks 7th. Well, a lot of people who might hang their hat on Starks this week better think again. I don't think he's going to have anywhere near the game. He might get 40 to 60 yards, but he's not going to go off like he did last week. Eric's favorite man, Marshawn Lynch. Yeah. Let's see him do this. Let's see him do the 60. Let's see him do the 60-yard run against the Bears. The Bears won't grab you by the jersey like.
I have a feeling Urlacher doesn't tackle that
I have a feeling. Urlacher will probably bring him down a little bit harder.